Welcome to the Word on Wednesday. This is your midweek online Bible study and devotion in Mackville Christian Church for July the 1st, 2026. And when I say that, I'm thinking, wow, July the 1st, July 1. We're midway through the year. Technically, Thursday, July the 2nd, is the exact midpoint because you have 182 days beforehand and 182 days after. But for all practical purposes, we're halfway through the year. It was about this time last year I began working on my plans for 2026, and probably more so than most years, those plans have been revised over and over again. But I also started reminding you about this time last year, every week, how long it was until our 200th anniversary at Mackville Christian Church. Now, the funny thing about those plans is I don't really plan very far ahead on Word on Wednesday. I have a general idea where I'll be and things, but nothing even remotely close to what I do on Sunday morning. And usually it's a matter of, well, in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll be talking about Joshua. We'll be talking about someone else. I try to keep them chronological, but that's about it. You know, I don't plan that very detailed. But as I wrote this week's Word on Wednesday out, Monday afternoon, I wondered if God was at work again when I noticed the timing of what we're going to be talking about today. I had already decided to talk about this last week, but I wondered if God was working because, you see, Monday morning, I drove back over to the church building and I met Justin Hatchett there at the church building, and we made a trip just outside of Mackville to the site of the original church building of Mackville Christian Church. It was called Long Lick Christian Church at the time. It's just a couple of miles, if that far, from our current building. And where we meet now has been where the church has been meeting since 1906. The original building is not easy to locate, but we had some help from the property owner, and yeah, you can tell there was a building there. But the building obviously fell into disrepair once the church relocated and eventually fell down. There's very little there now. But you know something? As I was thinking on my way back from Mackville Monday to my home in Lawrenceburg, I was thinking, you know, the original church building fell, but the church has continued to live, and it has grown in the lives of and hearts of men. But then as I was reading Joshua 3 and 4 in preparation for this Word on Wednesday, I could not help but think about what Justin and I had experienced. Because you see, in Joshua chapter 3, the Jews had been wandering in the wilderness, and now they were at the Jordan River with no way to cross. And look what we read in Joshua chapter 3, starting in verse 14. So when the people set out from their tents to pass over the Jordan, with the priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant before the people, and as soon as those bearing the ark had come as far as the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped in the brink of the water, now the Jordan overflows all its banks throughout the time harvest, the waters coming down from above stood and rose up in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarathan. And those flowing down toward the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, were completely cut off. And the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Now the priest bearing the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel was passing over on dry ground until till all the nation finished passing over the Jordan. Wow. We often talk about Moses leading the Jews across the Red Sea when they were escaping Egypt. But now here we are, later, they were at the Jordan, and God worked again, allowing them to cross on dry land. And then you look at chapter 4, and this is so pertinent to us today. Look at verses 1 through 3. When all the nation had finished passing over the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Take 12 men from the people, and from each tribe a man, and command them, saying, Take 12 stones from here out of the midst of the Jordan, from the very place where the priest's feet stood firmly, and bring them over with you, and lay them down in the place where you lodge tonight." Then go down to verses 6 and 7. When your children ask in time to come, "What do these stones mean to you?" then you shall tell them that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall be to the people of Israel a memorial forever. Then go down to verses 9 and 10 in chapter 4. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the covenant had stood. And they are here to this day. For the priests bearing the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord had commanded Joshua to tell the people, according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. You see, those stones were a monument to what God had done. God told Joshua to build that monument to remind the people in the future of what had happened. Remind them what I have done for you. Folks, these people, the Jews, they were human just like us. They were prone to forgetting what God had done. And they did forget, even with a reminder such as they had. And through history, we find that God allowed them to fall before they would return. And He would always forgive. And He accomplished great things. See, we're not perfect people. The Jews weren't perfect people. They forgot. They forgot what God had done in the past. And they fell away. Yet He forgave and accomplished great things through them. Folks, we have a great heritage at Mackville Christian Church. Even much more than I ever realized when I took the church. When I came as your minister. We might not have that original church building, but we have so much more. We have a legacy that many people have created at Mackville Christian Church, but it was built by God. We've got to always acknowledge that. Some of you might be direct descendants of those people who started that little church just outside of what we now know as Mackville in 1826. I don't know for sure, but it would not surprise me if that is the case. We have photos, we have some memorabilia. Someone in the church has loaned me some books about Washington County, and I found other things around the church, and we're going to be sharing some of those things over the next few weeks. But the thing I want to remind you of is let's never forget what those who went before us built. And most of all, let's never forget what God has done at Mackville, Kentucky. Through people. God works through people. He works through people who sacrifice so that we can grow today, so that we can grow in the future. That's why we remember. Most of you know I'm a big fan of the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. One thing I find very interesting when you go to the Ark Encounter is there's a display of 12 stones just as you enter the replica ark building. And it's based on Joshua chapter 4. Because it's a reminder of what God did for Joshua at the Jordan River. And it's a reminder of what people did, what they sacrificed to build that great educational attraction not far from us. That's very powerful. I'm not suggesting that we build a 12-stone monument there on Highway 152 at Mackville Christian Church. I'm not suggesting that. What I am suggesting is let's remember those who've gone before. Let's remember what God has done. Most of all, let's remember what God has done at Mackville, Kentucky, through those preachers, through those teachers, through those Sunday school teachers, through those elders, through those other people. Through those people who all work together to build a heritage at Mackville that we're following today. Let's remember that. Let's honor that. And let's push forward from here. That's why we remember to push forward in the future. Folks, I love you very much at Mackville. And I can't wait to see you Sunday. See you then. Have a great week.